The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal, its walls reflecting the light of a dozen alien suns. 12 massive seats arranged in a perfect circle dominated the center, each one crafted from materials that represented the pinnacle of their respective civilizations. Today, only 9 were occupied. Ambassador Zethkri of the Veltar Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes as he listened to the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories. His silver skin caught the ambient light, creating patterns that other species had learned to read as signs of his mood. Right now, those patterns showed boredom. Another primitive species discovered in Sector 7741, announced the mechanical voice of Construct Prime, the representative of the synthetic collective. Its body was a masterwork of living metal and quantum processors, standing 3 meters tall in its designated seat. Initial scans suggest they have achieved basic space travel. Chancellor Vron of the Hegemony clicked his mandibles dismissively. The insectoid leader had seen 1,000 such reports in his 3-century tenure on the Council. Chemical rockets, I assume? Perhaps fusion drives, if we are fortunate. The species calls itself humanity, continued Construct Prime, displaying a holographic star map above the center of the hall. A small yellow star appeared, highlighted in pulsing blue. They originate from a system they name Sol. 3rd planet from their star. Single species. Multiple political divisions, typical developmental markers. High Curator Synthara of the Preservation Caste leaned forward in her crystalline seat. Her people were known for their interest in collecting and studying lesser civilizations. Have they achieved faster-than-light travel yet? Negative. Our long-range sensors detect only sublight vessels within their system. Crude nuclear propulsion at best. Standard first contact protocols suggest a Category 7 civilization. A ripple of polite amusement passed through the assembled representatives. Category 7 was the lowest classification given to spacefaring species, barely above stone-throwing primitives in the Council's estimation. Zethkri felt his skin pattern shift to display mild interest. In his 400 years of service to the Council, he had overseen the integration of 43 primitive species into galactic civilization. It was routine work, but someone had to do it. I volunteer to handle first contact, he announced, his voice carrying the refined accent of the Veltar upper castes. My fleet can be ready within 3 standard cycles. Unnecessary, rumbled General Thax of the Warcast Dominion. The massive bear-like alien had little patience for diplomacy. Send a probe. Establish dominance. If they resist, we pacify them. The Preservation Caste objects, Synthara interjected smoothly. These humans may possess unique cultural or biological traits worth studying. I propose a careful first contact following Protocol 12. Zethkri suppressed his amusement. Protocol 12 was the most basic first contact procedure, designed for species so primitive they might worship advanced technology as magic. It involved a single ship making peaceful contact, demonstrating superior capabilities and offering membership in the galactic community under Council guidance. I agree with the Preservation Caste, he said, though I suggest a slight modification. 3 ships instead of 1. These humans have achieved system-wide expansion according to the scans. They may have basic military capabilities. Chancellor Vron's mandibles clicked again. 3 ships for a Category 7 species. Zethkri, your caution borders on paranoia. Better to appear strong from the beginning, Zethkri replied. My flagship Transcendent Dawn and 2 escort cruisers should be more than sufficient. We establish contact, assess their technology, offer them guidance into galactic civilization. Standard procedure. The vote was unanimous, as it usually was for such routine matters. Zethkri would take his 3 ships to the Sol system, make contact with these humans and either integrate them peacefully or demonstrate why resistance was futile. The Council had performed this dance thousands of times across the galaxy. As the session ended, and the representatives began filing out of the Great Hall, Zethkri remained in his seat, studying the holographic display of the human system. 9 planets, several asteroid belts, 1 inhabited world. It looked remarkably similar to dozens of other systems he had visited. His aide, Sub-Ambassador Kellen, approached with a data tablet containing detailed mission parameters. Sir, shall I prepare the usual integration packages? Standard technology exchanges, political frameworks, cultural adaptation protocols? Yes, prepare everything, Zethkri said, finally rising from his seat. Though something tells me this mission may be more interesting than usual. Sir? Zethkri paused, trying to identify what bothered him about the human scans. Everything appeared normal for a Category 7 species, yet something felt off. Run additional scans on their system before we depart. Deep spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about these humans. Of course, sir. Any particular concerns? None that I can articulate, Zethkri admitted. Call it professional instinct. 3 days later, the Veltar expedition prepared for departure. The Transcendent Dawn stretched nearly 400 meters from bow to stern, its hull crafted from quantum-stabilized matter that could withstand direct impacts from stellar phenomena. Flanking it were 2 escort cruisers, the Stellar Harmony and the Cosmic Balance, each half the size but equally advanced. The 3 ships represented the pinnacle of Council technology. Their shields could deflect asteroid impacts, their weapons could crack moons, and their faster-than-light drives could cross the galaxy in months. By any measure, they were more than adequate for contacting a primitive species. As Zethkri settled into his command chair aboard the Transcendent Dawn, he reviewed the final intelligence reports on humanity. The species had achieved crude space travel within the last century, established colonies on several worlds in their system, and showed the typical signs of a developing civilization: territorial disputes, resource competition, technological advancement through warfare. All ships report ready for departure, announced Captain Veltash from the bridge. Course laid in for the Sol system. Estimated travel time 6 standard days. Proceed, Zethkri ordered. And Captain? Yes, sir. Once we arrive, maintain full sensor sweeps. I want complete tactical awareness at all times. Sir, with respect, it's a Category 7 species. Our sensors can detect their largest ships from the edge of their system. Zethkri's skin pattern shifted to display mild annoyance. Captain, in my 4 centuries of service, I have learned that the species most likely to surprise you are the ones you underestimate. Follow my orders. Yes, sir. As the 3 ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the void between stars, none of their crews suspected that their mission would fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. They expected to find a primitive species with basic technology and simple weapons. They had no idea they were about to encounter humanity's idea of a welcome wagon. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations that had been watching the Council ships since they left port transmitted their data across quantum channels. The message was simple. 3 alien vessels were approaching Sol system. Estimated arrival in 6 days. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen received the intelligence briefing with grim satisfaction. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for months. The aliens were finally coming to introduce themselves. It was time to make a first impression they would never forget. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display that showed the entire Sol system in real time. Red dots marked the incoming alien vessels, still 5 days out from Earth orbit. Around her, dozens of officers moved with quiet efficiency through the command center of the United Defense Force. Ma'am, we have confirmation from Listening Post 7, reported Commander Torres, her chief intelligence officer. 3 ships, approximately 400 meters for the largest, 2 smaller escorts. They're using some kind of space-folding drive we haven't seen before. Chen nodded, her weathered face showing no emotion. At 62, she had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. The day when humanity would no longer be alone in the universe. The day when they would learn whether they were predators or prey. Weapon signatures, energy-based systems, likely plasma or particle beams. The big ship reads like it could crack a moon if it wanted to. The escorts pack enough firepower to glass a continent each. Standard diplomatic approach pattern? Appears so, ma'am. They're not trying to hide, not coming in fast or aggressive. This looks like a first contact mission. Chen allowed herself a small smile. After 40 years of military service, she knew that first impressions in any conflict determined everything that followed. These aliens were expecting to find a primitive species with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They were about to learn that humanity had a very different approach to survival. Status report on the Leviathan? Captain Rodriguez appeared on her secondary screen, broadcasting from the bridge of humanity's newest and largest warship. Behind him, Chen could see the bustle of a crew preparing for the most important mission in human history. All systems green, Admiral. We completed final weapons testing yesterday. The new kinetic accelerators are performing above specifications. The reactive armor plating passed all stress tests. We're ready. How ready? Rodriguez's grin was predatory. Ma'am, we could take on their entire council fleet and ask for seconds. Chen felt a surge of pride. The UDS Leviathan represented everything humanity had learned about war, survival, and the fundamental truth that in a dangerous universe, strength was the only currency that mattered. 8 kilometers of armored death, bristling with weapons that treated physics more like guidelines than laws. Dr. Kim, report on the defensive grid. The chief scientist looked up from her console, pushing her glasses up her nose. All 47 Titan-class vessels are in position throughout the system. The orbital platforms are fully armed and operational. If these aliens decide to get hostile, we can turn Sol system into a shooting gallery. And they have no idea? None, ma'am. Our ships are running full stealth. To their sensors, they're looking at a primitive species with a few mining stations and communication satellites. They can't detect our true capabilities until we choose to reveal them. Chen turned back to the main display, studying the approaching alien ships. 3 vessels against 47. It would have been laughable if not for the fact that those 3 ships represented an entirely unknown level of technology. Humanity's greatest advantage was that they had been planning for this encounter since the first radio signals from space. Dr. Kim, remind me of our technological assessment. Based on intercepted communications and long-range scans, their ships use matter-energy conversion for power, quantum field manipulation for faster-than-light travel, and directed energy weapons for combat. Impressive, but we've exceeded their capabilities in every category. How? Dr. Kim smiled. Because they built their technology for efficiency and elegance. We built ours to win wars, it was true. While the aliens had spent millennia perfecting their science, humanity had spent the same time perfecting the art of killing. Every human advancement was driven by military necessity. Faster computers to target enemies more accurately. Stronger materials to protect against bigger weapons. More powerful engines to outrun or catch opponents. When humanity finally reached the stars, they brought with them 40,000 years of evolutionary warfare knowledge compressed into the most lethal technology they could imagine. Admiral, interrupted Communications Officer Wang. We're receiving a transmission from the approaching ships. Already? They're still 4 days out. Yes, ma'am. It appears to be a general broadcast, probably intended for any human vessels in the area. Put it through. The voice that filled the command center was cultured, refined, and carried the unmistakable tone of someone used to being obeyed. Greetings, inhabitants of the Sol system. I am Ambassador Zethkri of the Veltar Empire, representing the Galactic Council. We come in peace to offer your species membership in our galactic community. Please respond on this frequency to arrange a meeting. Silence filled the command center for several moments. Then Commander Torres spoke up. Pretty standard first contact protocol, ma'am. Polite, non-threatening, offering benefits of membership, and completely ignoring the possibility that we might not want to join their club, added Captain Rodriguez from his screen. Chen considered her options. Humanity could respond immediately, opening diplomatic channels and trying to negotiate from a position of perceived weakness. Or they could wait, let the aliens come to them and control the circumstances of first contact. Dr. Kim, how long before they enter the outer system? 4 days, 18 hours, ma'am. Perfect. That gives us time to position the Leviathan for maximum psychological impact. Chen turned to address her entire staff. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make the most important first impression in human history. These aliens expect to find a primitive species that will be grateful for their guidance. Instead, they're going to discover that humanity writes its own rules. She activated the general communications channel that connected her to every human military installation in the system. This is Admiral Chen to all units. Operation First Contact is now active. All vessels maintain stealth protocols until further notice. All crews are to consider this a combat mission until proven otherwise. We do not know these aliens' true intentions, but we will demonstrate from the beginning that humanity is not prey. The acknowledgements came back from across the system. 47 ship captains confirming they were ready. Orbital platform commanders reporting weapons hot and tracking systems active. Even the civilian colonies had been quietly evacuated to hardened bunkers. Ma'am, asked Captain Rodriguez, what about their offer of membership in this Galactic Council? Chen's smile was cold. Captain, humanity spent 10,000 years fighting for independence from kings and emperors and anyone else who thought they could rule us. We didn't claw our way to the stars just to kneel to a new set of masters. She looked around the command center, meeting the eyes of each officer. We're going to teach these aliens something about human nature. We don't ask for respect. We don't beg for acceptance. We take our place in the galaxy on our own terms, or we take it by force. And if they refuse to accept us as equals, then they'll learn why every human weapon system has a setting that goes way past reasonable force. Chen turned back to the display showing the approaching alien ships. Dr. Kim, I want the Leviathan's first appearance to be memorable. Can we arrange for them to drop out of faster-than-light travel right in front of the alien formation? Absolutely, ma'am. We can time it so the Leviathan appears to materialize out of nowhere at exactly the moment they enter our space. Do it. I want Ambassador Zethkri to understand immediately that he's not dealing with primitives. As her officers dispersed to their duties, Chen remained alone with the star map, watching the red dots slowly approaching humanity's home system. For 40 years, she had wondered what humanity's first contact with alien life would look like. She had imagined many scenarios: peaceful meetings, hostile invasions, technological exchanges. She had never imagined that humanity would be the ones making the aliens nervous. But that was exactly what was about to happen, because these aliens were about to learn the most important lesson about humanity. They had not become the dominant species on Earth by being reasonable. Ambassador Zethkri stood on the bridge of the Transcendent Dawn as his small fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. The familiar sensation of reality reasserting itself around his ship always reminded him of diving into cold water. A brief moment of disorientation followed by crystal clarity. Long-range sensors coming online, reported his tactical officer. Beginning system-wide scan. Standard formation, Zethkri ordered. Harmony and balance take flanking positions. All weapons powered but not targeted. We want to appear strong but not threatening. The bridge fell into the quiet efficiency of a veteran crew performing routine duties. This was Zethkri's 44th First Contact mission, and he had learned that success usually depended on projecting the right balance of power and diplomacy. Show enough strength to discourage resistance, but not so much as to appear aggressive. Sir, initial scans are coming through, announced Science Officer Velprin from her station. I'm reading multiple space installations throughout the system, more than expected for a Category 7 species. Zethkri moved to her console, studying the holographic display of the Sol system. Dozens of small contacts dotted the space around various planets and asteroid belts. Mining operations? Possibly. Power signatures are consistent with industrial facilities. I'm also detecting significant radio traffic between installations. They appear to have a well-developed communication network. Any sign of military vessels? Nothing significant. A few small craft moving between installations, probably cargo ships. No energy signatures that would suggest serious weaponry. Zethkri nodded, feeling more confident. The humans had developed more extensive space infrastructure than expected, but that was not unusual for species on the verge of joining galactic civilization. Open a channel to the primary inhabited planet. Channel open, sir. Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Zethkri of the Veltar Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. We come in peace to welcome your species into the greater galactic community. Please respond on this frequency so that we may arrange a formal meeting. They waited. Standard procedure called for at least 1 hour for the transmission to reach the planet, and for local authorities to formulate a response. Primitive species often needed time to overcome the shock of learning they were not alone in the universe. Sir, interrupted the tactical officer, his voice carrying a note of confusion, I'm detecting a massive gravity distortion approaching our position. Zethkri felt his skin pattern shift to display alert concern. Approaching from where? Unknown, sir. It just appeared on sensors. Distance, approximately 50,000 kilometers in closing. Natural phenomenon? Negative, sir. This is artificial. Something very large moving very fast. Red alert, Zethkri commanded. All ships defensive posture. Shields up. Weapons ready. The bridge lighting shifted to the crimson glow of combat readiness as his crew responded to the threat. Around him, officers checked weapon systems and defensive configurations with practiced efficiency. Sir, called out the science officer, her voice tight with disbelief. You need to see this. Zethkri moved to her station and felt his blood turn cold. The gravity distortion was not a natural phenomenon or a weapon. It was a ship. A ship so massive that their sensors were having trouble processing its dimensions. How large? He asked quietly. Preliminary scans suggest 8 kilometers in length. Mass equivalent to a small moon. Sir, this is impossible. No species builds ships this large. Veltash, Sethkri called to his captain. Time to intercept? 30 seconds, sir. Whatever it is, it's coming straight for us. Through the bridge's main viewport, space began to distort as something enormous dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of their formation. The distortion cleared, and Sethkri found himself staring at something that redefined his understanding of military engineering. The human ship stretched across space like a moving mountain. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, and bristled with weapon systems that Sethkri could not identify. Massive turrets tracked his ships with obvious targeting intent. The vessel's design spoke of one purpose: war. Communications incoming, reported the comm officer, his voice barely above a whisper. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, professional, and carried an undertone of absolute confidence. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez of the United Defense Ship Leviathan. You have entered human territorial space. State your intentions immediately. Sethkri felt his carefully prepared first contact speech crumble in his mind. Everything about this situation was wrong. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be grateful for contact with superior civilizations. They were not supposed to have ships that made his own fleet look like children's toys. Captain Rodriguez, he replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. I am Ambassador Sethkri representing the Galactic Council. We come in peace to offer your species membership in our galactic community. Membership? The human's voice carried a note of amusement. Captain, you're in our space, in our system uninvited. What makes you think we're looking to join anything? The Galactic Council has guided species to civilization for millennia, Sethkri said, falling back on standard diplomatic language. We offer technology, knowledge, and protection to those who accept our guidance. Protection from what? The question was simple, but it carried implications that made Sethkri's skin patterns shift nervously. The human was asking what threats required protection, which implied they did not consider themselves vulnerable. From various dangers in the galaxy, Sethkri replied weakly. Sir, whispered his tactical officer, I'm reading massive power buildups throughout their ship. Whatever weapons they're carrying, they're charging them. Before Sethkri could respond, additional contacts appeared on his sensors. Ships were uncloaking throughout the system. First dozens, then scores of vessels revealed themselves, each one larger than anything in his fleet. Dear gods, breathed the science officer. Sir, there are 46 additional ships of similar size distributed throughout the system. Our sensors never detected them. Captain Rodriguez's voice returned, still calm. Ambassador, you seem surprised. Did you expect to find us defenseless? Sethkri stared at the tactical display showing his 3 ships surrounded by nearly 50 massive human warships. Each one was capable of destroying his entire fleet single-handedly. The humans had not just achieved space travel, they had weaponized it to a degree that bordered on insanity. How? How is this possible? He asked, abandoning all pretense of diplomatic protocol. Ambassador, humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We've been listening to your communications for months. We knew you were coming. We knew you would expect to find primitives, so we prepared a proper welcome. Your weapons, Sethkri said, studying the readings from the human ships. They're beyond anything in our databases. That's because we approach technology differently than you do. You build for efficiency and elegance. We build to win wars. The implications hit Sethkri like a physical blow. These humans had not achieved their technology through peaceful exploration and cooperation. They had reached the stars by perfecting the art of warfare. Every system on their ships was designed to kill enemies more effectively. What do you want? He asked. That depends on you, Ambassador. We're happy to establish diplomatic relations with your Galactic Council, but understand this clearly. We will not be joining as junior members seeking guidance. If humanity deals with the galaxy, it will be as equals. Sethkri looked around his bridge at officers whose skin patterns displayed varying degrees of terror and awe. In 4 centuries of first contact missions, he had never encountered a species that turned the standard power dynamic completely upside down. I will need to consult with the Council, he said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Ambassador, yes? While you're consulting, remember that what you're seeing here is just our home defense fleet. Our real military is elsewhere. As the communication ended, Zethkri stared at the massive human ship that continued to track his fleet with obvious targeting systems. Around him, his crew worked quietly to process sensor data that challenged everything they thought they knew about military technology. He was no longer conducting a routine first contact mission. He was negotiating humanity's entry into galactic politics from a position of strength that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And somehow, he suspected the humans had planned it exactly this way. Captain Rodriguez studied the 3 alien ships on his tactical display, while his bridge crew ran final systems checks on the Leviathan's weapon systems. The aliens had been sitting at the edge of human space for 6 hours now, presumably sending frantic messages back to their superiors. It was time to provide them with some additional perspective. Admiral Chen on Priority Channel, announced communications. Officer Parks, the main screen split to show Admiral Chen's face alongside the tactical display of alien ships. Captain, what's the status of our guests? They've been very quiet since our initial contact, ma'am. Minimal movement, low energy signatures. I think we shocked them pretty thoroughly. Good. Now it's time for the practical demonstration we discussed. Are you ready to show them what human military doctrine looks like? Rodriguez felt his crew's anticipation. They had trained for this moment, the chance to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. All systems ready, Admiral. Target practice is prepared. Excellent. Ambassador Zethkri needs to understand that what he's seeing isn't just big ships with impressive sensors. Show him what we can do. Rodriguez switched to the alien communication frequency. Ambassador Zethkri, this is Captain Rodriguez. My superiors would like to demonstrate some of our defensive capabilities. Please observe. On the alien ship's bridge, Zethkri watched with growing unease as the massive human vessel began rotating to face a large asteroid roughly 10 kilometers from their position. The rock was easily 500 meters across, large enough to devastate a planet if it struck an inhabited world. What are they doing? Asked Captain Veltash. I believe, Zethkri said slowly. They are about to show us something we will not forget. The Leviathan's primary kinetic accelerator, a weapon system that ran the entire length of the ship, began charging. Energy readings spiked beyond anything in the Veltar database. The humans were pouring enough power into a single weapon to supply a major city for months. Firing, announced Captain Rodriguez over the communication channel. What emerged from the human ship was not a beam of energy or a missile. It was a solid projectile accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The asteroid simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a massive chunk of rock and metal. The next it was an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and debris. Gods of space, whispered the Veltar science officer. The kinetic energy required for that shot. They just vaporized 500 meters of solid rock with a single projectile. And that, came Captain Rodriguez's voice, was our smallest kinetic accelerator on minimum power setting. Before Zethkri could respond, the human ship rotated again, this time facing a cluster of smaller asteroids. Multiple weapon systems activated simultaneously. Particle beams, plasma cannons, and projectile weapons that moved too fast for sensors to track. In less than 30 seconds, the humans had obliterated every piece of space debris within 50 kilometers of their position. Target practice completed, Rodriguez announced casually. All weapons performed within acceptable parameters. Zethkri stared at the empty space where moments before there had been enough asteroids to supply a mining operation for decades. The human ship had wiped them from existence as easily as swatting insects. Captain Rodriguez, he said, his voice barely steady, your weapons appear to be quite advanced. These are just our standard defensive systems. Would you like to see what we use for actual combat? That will not be necessary, Zethkri replied quickly. Actually, interrupted a new voice on the communication channel, I think it might be educational. The screen in front of Zethkri changed to show a human woman in military uniform. Her hair was gray, her face weathered, and her eyes held the kind of cold intelligence that came from decades of military command. Ambassador Zethkri, I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Commander of United Defense Forces. I've been listening to your conversation with Captain Rodriguez. Admiral Chen, Zethkri replied, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure. It is an honor to meet the leader of your military forces. Ambassador, let me be direct. Your Galactic Council has a choice to make. You can accept humanity as equals in your galactic community, or you can try to treat us as primitives who need guidance. I want to make sure you understand the implications of that choice. Admiral, I assure you that the Council always respects the sovereignty of member species. Member species, Chen repeated. That phrase assumes we want to be members. What if we prefer to remain independent? The question hung in space between the human and alien fleets. Zethkri had never encountered a species that questioned the benefits of Council membership. Galactic civilization offered technology, trade, protection, and guidance. What species would refuse such advantages? Admiral, he said carefully, independence in a galaxy full of hostile forces can be dangerous. Dangerous to whom? The question was delivered with such quiet confidence that Zethkri felt his skin pattern shift to display involuntary fear responses. This human was not asking about dangers to humanity. She was asking what dangers humanity might pose to others. Let me show you something, Admiral Chen continued. Captain Rodriguez, please display the current deployment of our home defense fleet. On Zethkri's tactical display, icons appeared throughout the Sol system. 47 ships of various sizes, all larger than anything in his fleet, all positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire that could destroy anything entering human space. This is our defensive force, Chen explained. Ships designed to protect our home system from invasion. Each one carries enough firepower to sterilize planets. Each one can engage multiple targets simultaneously. Each one is operated by humans who have spent their entire lives learning how to fight and win wars. Impressive, Zethkri managed. Ambassador, this is not our military. These are patrol ships. Our actual battle fleets are currently deployed throughout this region of the galaxy, gathering intelligence on potential threats. The words hit Zethkri like a physical blow. The humans had not just built a defensive force, they had created a military presence that extended far beyond their home system. They had been watching the galaxy, studying potential enemies, preparing for conflicts that might never come. How many ships? He asked, classified. But Ambassador, I want you to understand something about human nature. We do not build weapons because we want to fight. We build them because we refuse to lose. Every human child learns the same lesson. The species that survives is the one that prepares for the worst possible scenario. Chen leaned forward on the screen, her expression deadly serious. Your council has dominated this region of space for millennia. You have grown comfortable with your technological superiority and military dominance, but you made one critical mistake. What mistake? You assumed that any species capable of reaching the stars would follow the same path you did. Peaceful exploration, gradual technological development, eventual integration into your galactic order. You never considered that another species might reach the stars by perfecting warfare instead of diplomacy. Zethkri looked around his bridge at officers whose skin patterns displayed terror, awe, and desperate calculation. Everything they had believed about galactic civilization was being challenged by these humans and their impossible military capabilities. What do you want from us? He asked. Nothing, Chen replied. We don't need your technology, ours is superior. We don't need your protection, we can defend ourselves. We don't need your guidance, we make our own decisions. What we want is simple recognition that humanity writes its own rules. And if the Council refuses, Admiral Chen's smile was cold as vacuum. Ambassador, you've seen our defensive capabilities. You've witnessed our weapon systems. You know we have military forces deployed throughout this region of space. If the Council wants to find out what happens when humans stop being polite, that's their choice. The communication ended, leaving Zethkri alone with his crew and the terrible knowledge that they had not discovered a primitive species ready for guidance. They had encountered an apex predator that had been quietly preparing for galactic warfare while everyone else assumed they were alone. As he began composing his report to the Council, Zethkri realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted permanently. Humanity had not asked for membership in galactic civilization. They had announced their arrival as its newest superpower. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 12 representatives sat in their ceremonial seats, but the usual atmosphere of dignified debate had been replaced by something approaching panic. Ambassador Zethkri stood in the center of the circle, his skin pattern cycling through colors that no council member had ever seen before. Repeat your report, commanded Chancellor Vron, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. Zethkri activated the holographic display, showing the comparative size between his 3 ships and the human vessel they had encountered. The scale difference was so extreme that several council members initially assumed it was a recording error. The human ship designated Leviathan measured 8 kilometers in length, Zethkri said, his voice steady despite his obvious distress. Mass equivalent to a small moon. Weapon systems that could obliterate asteroids with single shots. And this was just one of 47 similar vessels in their home system. Impossible, rumbled General Thax. No species builds ships that large. The resource requirements alone would cripple any economy. I have the sensor recordings, Zethkri replied. The humans not only built these ships, they did so while maintaining the appearance of a primitive civilization. Their stealth technology is decades ahead of our best systems. High Curator Synthara leaned forward in her crystalline seat. You mentioned weapons demonstrations. Describe them. Zethkri's skin patterns shifted to display deep unease. They targeted a 500-meter asteroid with what they called their smallest kinetic accelerator on minimum power setting. The asteroid was completely vaporized. The kinetic energy required for such a feat exceeds the total power output of our largest ships. Construct Prime's mechanical form word as it processed the implications. Analysis complete. If accurate, human military technology exceeds Council capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Probability of successful military resistance negligible. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. For millennia, the Council had maintained galactic order through technological and military superiority. The idea that a single species could challenge that dominance was unthinkable. There must be some explanation, insisted Representative Korth of the merchant clans. Perhaps they acquired this technology from another source? Ancient artifacts? A failed colony from an extinct civilization? Negative, Zethkri replied. I spoke directly with their military leadership. Admiral Sarah Chen made it clear that these weapons represent purely human engineering. More disturbing, she indicated that their home defense fleet represents only a fraction of their total military capability. What do you mean? Asked Chancellor Vron. According to Admiral Chen, they have battle fleets deployed throughout this region of space. Ships larger and more powerful than what I observed, gathering intelligence on all spacefaring species in our territory. The silence that followed was deafening. Every council member understood the implications. While they had believed themselves the undisputed masters of local space, humans had been secretly studying them, cataloging their weaknesses, preparing for potential conflicts. What do they want? Asked Synthara. Recognition as equals, full autonomy over their territory, and Zethkri paused, his skin patterns cycling through shades of fear. They want the council to understand that they will not accept subordinate status under any circumstances. Arrogant primitives, snarled General Thax. A show of force will remind them of their place in the galactic order. General, Zethkri said quietly, I witnessed their show of force. They could destroy your entire battle fleet before you got within weapons range of their ships. The weight of that statement settled over the council like a burial shroud. General Thax commanded the most powerful military force in known space. Thousands of ships, weapons capable of cracking planets, shields that could withstand stellar flares. If the humans could neutralize such a force, they represented an existential threat to council authority. What did you tell them? Asked Chancellor Vron. I told them I would report their position to the council and await instructions. They seemed amused by this. Amused? Admiral Chen indicated that they expected the council to need time to adjust to the new reality. She was quite confident about the outcome of any discussions. Construct Prime's optical sensors focused on Zethkri. Did they make specific demands? They want formal recognition as a sovereign species with complete autonomy over their claimed territory. They want trade agreements based on mutual benefit rather than council oversight. And they want representation in any decisions that affect their region of space. Representation? Chancellor Vron's mandibles clicked rapidly. They want a seat on the council? Not exactly. They want what Admiral Chen called a place at the table. They made it clear that they will not be governed by decisions made without their input. The council chamber fell silent again as the representatives processed this information. In their entire history, the council had never encountered a species that demanded equal treatment from a position of military strength. Every previous first contact had followed the same pattern: technological demonstration, Offer of membership. Grateful acceptance of council. Guidance. Vote, announced Chancellor. Vron. All in favor of attempting military subjugation of the human species. Not. A single hand rose. All in favor of attempting diplomatic resolution through technological or economic pressure. Again, no response. All in favor of accepting human demands for equal status and territorial autonomy. Slowly, reluctantly, every hand in the chamber rose. Motion carried, Vron announced. Zethkri, you will return to human space with formal recognition of their sovereignty and an offer of mutual diplomatic relations. There is one more thing, Zethkri said hesitantly. Yes? Before I departed, Captain Rodriguez made what he called a friendly suggestion. He recommended that the Council consider updating its approach to first contact with newly discovered species. What kind of update? He suggested that we might want to assume that any species capable of reaching the stars has done so for military reasons. His exact words were, "Not everyone in the galaxy is as nice as we are." The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If humans, with their terrifying military capabilities, considered themselves the nice option, what other species might be developing in the darker corners of the galaxy? How many other civilizations might be approaching spaceflight through warfare rather than exploration? Meeting adjourned, Chancellor Vron announced. Zethkri, prepare for immediate departure. And Ambassador? Yes, Chancellor. When you return to human space, make it very clear that the Council welcomes humanity as partners in maintaining galactic stability. As the representatives filed out of the Great Hall, Construct Prime lingered, its sensors still processing the human ship specifications from Zethkri's report. After several minutes of calculation, it reached a conclusion that would have terrified the Council even more. Based on resource allocation analysis and industrial capacity estimates, humanity's true military capability was likely 10 times larger than what they had revealed. The 47 ships in their home system represented a defensive force designed to protect their homeworld. Their actual battle fleets deployed secretly throughout the galaxy, probably numbered in the thousands. The humans had not simply demonstrated superior technology, they had announced their presence as the galaxy's new apex predator, while making it clear that they preferred diplomacy to war. The message was subtle but unmistakable. Behave reasonably and humanity would be a valuable ally. Force them to fight, and they would exterminate anyone who threatened them. 3 days later, Ambassador Zethkri returned to Sol System with formal documents recognizing humanity as a sovereign species and offering full diplomatic relations between equals. As his ship approached the edge of human space, he was greeted by Captain Rodriguez and the Leviathan. "Welcome back, Ambassador," came the familiar voice over communications. "I trust the Council had time to consider our position?" "They did, Captain. I carry formal recognition of human sovereignty and an offer of diplomatic partnership." "Excellent. Admiral Chen will be pleased." "Oh, an ambassador?" "Yes. The Admiral wanted me to thank the Council for their wisdom. She also wanted me to mention that our exploration fleets have identified several other species developing spaceflight capability. We thought the Council might appreciate advance warning about potential new partners." As Zethkri's ship was escorted toward Earth for formal diplomatic ceremonies, he realized that humanity had not simply joined galactic civilization. They had become its newest protectors, self-appointed guardians who would ensure that other species learned the same lesson the Council had. In a galaxy full of potential threats, it was better to have humans as allies than enemies. The age of Council dominance was over. The age of human influence had begun. And somehow, watching the massive human warship escort his tiny vessel toward Earth, Zethkri suspected that the galaxy was about to become a much safer place. As long as everyone remembered to be reasonable,